Hey, Deviants.
Thank you for tuning in to We Say Weird Shit. Welcome in, Deviants, to another episode of We Say Weird Shit. We are your humble hosts. My name is Dave.
And I'm Liz.
And today we have a very special author of this book right here, Head of a Gorgon. And it is by Raegen M. Pietrucha. Hello, Raegen. How are you today?
I'm delightful.
Delightful. Fantastic. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I wrote a book of poems about Medusa. I also tweet a lot of weird lit goth crap. And what else? I walk on a beach every morning and usually collect shells as part of my goth ritual of collecting dead things. That's what I do.
Hey, that's, you know what? I love that, like, some people can take, like, certain pleasures and just simple things like picking up shells or, you know, something of that nature, just to, you know, it shows, I don't know, personality maybe, you know, because not everybody does that. You know, we're not all cookie cutter. But you wrote a book of poems about Medusa. What gave you the inspiration for that?
So initially the project wasn't even a project. It just started out as an idea for a single poem in workshop. So my mom is a breast cancer survivor. Mm-hmm. And the way that certain men in our lives related to her after her surgery, because she had a double mastectomy. This was in the early 90s. So they didn't really have like the treatments that they have today.
Yeah.
So while she only had a lump in one breast, they took everything basically. And it changed her relationship to her body. And like I said, certain men in our lives kind of had a different relationship to her and her body as well. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had this connection in my mind between that happening and Medusa, right? So Medusa is transformed into this hideous monster as punishment, albeit not cancer, but for a completely different thing, that has the power to turn people to stone. So I went home and I thought I was going to work on that poem. And then what ended up happening was I started doing research and I started uncovering all these different variations of the Medusa myth. And by the time I was kind of done doing that initial preliminary research, which I just like went down the rabbit hole. This was like hours of just digging online and, oh, there's this version and, oh, what's the original? And asking kind of all these questions of the Google machine. I realized that actually the core of the story really is, in my mind, the sexual violence component of the most versions of the myth, not the Amazon commercial, which is ridiculous. But
yeah.
But yeah, so Liz, you said you had some questions?
Well, and I think you kind of touched on that, like the different versions. And I did not study Greek mythology in school at all. Like I read the Odyssey because I had to. And
same.
So earlier this year, I was listening to a podcast on mythological creatures and beings. And I heard the story of Medusa and how, you know, she was raped and this was her punishment. But then I started, you know, digging in and, you know, there's the different versions, like she was raped, she was assaulted, or, you know, she had she had an affair with Poseidon, and this was her punishment. So, like, I don't know. Like, is it more like that she was assaulted? Is that like the real story behind Medusa?
Well, so, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting because I don't, I mean, I didn't ever run across anything that would indicate that this was based on like a real person per se. I mean, I can't imagine that in the past somebody had snakes for hair. Although, of course, that could be a metaphor. And in fact, is in my book. But I think the nature of the variations of the myth, it's that I think that's quite common among mythology. I mean, that's even common among like religion, right? But I think it more importantly than saying, okay, so like what's the truth of the myth? I mean, I just rewrote a myth. So is that the truth? I'm not sure that there is one particular truth, but the thing that I find interesting about the question that you posed actually is just the fact that that question is a question that we have with respect to many survivors, right? Well, was it consensual? Was it not? I mean, I think some of us relate very differently to survivors, especially now and especially after, Me Too began. But those types of questions, for me, I look at the versions where it's not clear if it's consensual as being still not consensual.
Yeah.
Right. But that's my perspective coming from my background, my experience, the experiences of folks close to me and things like that. So while I can't say one version of the myth is truer than the other, I know what feels true to me and the story that I think was most important for me to tell.
I mean, and I think it's very telling, even if you say, okay, this was her punishment for having an affair with Poseidon. Like, why was she punished? Like, he was just as smart, just as much a part of that as her. So, like, why is she being punished? So, it's interesting, obviously, how women have been portrayed since the beginning of time. And so.
Yeah. And I think that actually kind of speaks volumes too. I mean, in relation to your experience in the 90s with your mother. And, I, as a guy, kind of feel terrible hearing that story, that something so simple as, a medical thing, can completely like change somebody's perspective of a person, and it's disgusting, but it also shows kind of the brain of, and I can't lump all men into this, but I can say some men. And it's unfortunate that one bad apple kind of ruins the bunch in that matter, because some people just write people like that off completely. Like some people, if there's one or two, or say there's like 7 out of 10 guys that act the same way, those other 3 are going to kind of take the brunt for it, and it's kind of saddening that like we can't be as accepting to a situation like that. So, I guess on like a feminist side of things, it's disgusting how some men can be. And, that's unfortunate. I'm glad you found a way to channel that into your writing.
I didn't actually, and I didn't actually end up writing that poem. I mean, I have written other poems about my mom's survivorship of cancer.
Yeah.
But that particular poem or connection didn't end up coming to be because I went in this different direction with Medusa. But I mean, it's a difficult thing to realize the truth about certain people. But I'm the kind of person where I would rather know the truth about a person than not. Now, I can't speak for my mother on that.
Right.
That's.
But your own personal feeling on it and what you've perceived I can totally understand where you're coming from. I unfortunately haven't had time to pick up your book. Liz has actually been reading, and I've been kind of busy these past couple of days with my job and booking people. But I promise you, I will pick it up and read it. But speaking of the book, Liz and I actually do have a big announcement to make. We actually, oh, I love it. We're actually going to be giving away one of our copies of the book to one of our listeners. When this episode does air, we will have a game to play. And that game will give you full details and rules on our social media sites. So just make sure that you give us a follow. Turn notifications on so you can always, be the first one to play the game, and may the best person win.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
Ever in your favor.
Except, don't end up getting killed by, fellow teenagers.
Well, well, we are hooked up on Monster Energy drinks now. Anything goes.
And nicotine.
Oh yeah, I have been chiefing that. So, yeah, like I said, we've had so many guests on, and I was so excited to get to you. So first things first, is this your first book?
So it's my first full length. I did have a chapbook, which is basically about half the length, come out in 2016. But it was almost consider it like the sneak preview of Head of a Gorgon. I had been working on the full length for a number of years, and at a certain point, I realized, I could pull these particular poems, this sort of chunk of poems out, and just have it be a standalone project and just publish that. I'm not a super prolific writer, so I like to get the most mileage out of my work as I can. So I was able to publish that through a contest, actually, that it won. And so that came out in 2016. And then I just kept working, on the full length. And then that brings us to this book. So yes and no, but mostly yes.
Are you? Do you have any plans for more books in the future?
Yeah, so right now I have a memoir that I'm working on, so that's in progress. Although I will say that it's been a while since I actually worked on drafting anything with it, because around October, November of last year, I just devoted all of my time and energy to promoting the book and getting the word out there and connecting with podcasters and newspapers and, event venues and things like that. So it's basically I've been working two jobs since October, November of last year. But I do look for, I really hope, and I'm thinking probably before the end of the year, I'll be getting back to drafting the memoir. And it's a totally different thing because it's prose. So it's I actually started off in prose, but then gravitated towards poetry. So now that I'm going back to prose, it's everything's so long. I've already got 200 pages. Why is this happening? And I'm not even done with the story. I've got 8 or 10 more chapters. What's happening? So I'm filled with regret, but I'm also one of those types of people where when I commit to a project, when I say that I'm going to do a thing, I do the thing. Which, it's I don't know, I guess, having integrity is a good thing. But, when you got, an anticipated 300 or 400 pages, it's
right. Oh, no, I get that fully. I get that fully. I was actually in our first episode that we recorded. I was just telling Liz that I only got that skill recently, not to second guess, just to do it. If I'm going to commit to it, I'm going to commit to it 100%. If you second guess it, you ain't going to get anything done, And so yeah, I can totally relate with that. I've done stuff that put me in over my head because of that, like.
What are you saying, Dave? Are you saying I'm in over my head, Dave?
Not yet, but I've done some stuff that put me in over my head because I didn't second guess myself, but I had the drive to commit to it, and finally was able to get caught up where I was. But yeah, I totally understand that. I just can't write. I cannot write to save my life. And I realize that weakness in myself, so I can never do it. My hat's off to you.
Well, but some people would probably say the same about my work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, especially in poetry, it's very subjective.
Right.
And certainly the subject matter is not for everybody. It's not like I can go shop my book in like K-12 or something.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I always like to try to support people who have any interest in writing, which doesn't mean that you have to commit to writing your novel today, but I will check in the future.
Okay. I will let you know.
You write song lyrics, so I mean,
I do.
Oh, that's just poetry to music. So
yeah.
actually, no, I can't say that because some poets will like freak out and then like bash me on Twitter. I don't really care.
I've turned poetry into songs before. Not my own poetry. I actually, I've had people submit poetry to me and I turned it into a song.
Nice.
And it was the most depressing thing I've ever heard.
Oh my God.
Depressing.
It was depressing.
Yeah, but like a lot of poets gravitate towards like the grief and death thing. Like, even though that's not exactly what my book is about, I mean, it's still dark, depressing, Yeah.
I got to tell you though, I love the cover art.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jackie Lou is amazing. I'm very, very lucky.
Fantastic.
To work with her. Yeah, she really brought the idea to life. Like, you should, I mean, I'm not going to show you the crappy sketch I sent her of the concept because it's awful.
Oh, come on.
Real artist.
Come on.
But it was like, okay, so this is what I want because it's what makes sense with my version, but like, can you tell what I'm doing with this crappy drawing I made? So of course she could. She created this awesome picture. And purple is both of our favorite colors. Yeah, she did an amazing job.
It's fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and just show this off. We're going to take a look at that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. But I want to know what it'll take to get you to show me that crappy picture. Would it take me doing this?
Hey,
Paisan!
Hey.
Come on, Paisan!
The thing is like, if this wasn't like a recording, if this wasn't going to live on the internet forever, in fact, in retrospect, I probably should have put it in my contract with Jackie. Like, you can never share this sketch ever. This will never see the light of day. But yeah, I mean, if this wasn't living forever, I might consider like.
I'll tell you what.
But it's not.
I will give you my word. I will give you a Paisan's word. You just send it directly to me. I will never share it with anybody but me and Liz. But I gotta see it.
Okay. I mean, all right. Her cover is much, much better. Like, you're gonna see this and be like, wow. And not in a good way. Like,
you know what? I've seen some bad drawings before. I'm sure it's not that bad. If she brought what you were trying to embody to life, then it can't be that bad, right? I mean, is it like stick figures?
No, I mean, it's better than that. But and she had, one of the things that she did that I think really, really worked. My original drawing had a profile, and she kind of changed the angle so that you can really see more of the face and the facial expression because of that. But the original concept with the snakes coming out of the cage that held the face, like, I'm a huge fan of surreal art.
Yeah.
Like, I love Dali, I love Magritte. There's a dude named Rafael Albinski. He's a contemporary. I love his work. And I don't know, just it kind of makes like sense in a more logical way than something straightforward. And honestly, like, every time I see Medusa, it's the same thing. And I'm not knocking anybody else's art, but by saying that's my intention by saying this. But it's like, it's always the snakes coming out of the head. But like, when you really think about a survivor of sexual violence, they look like normal people. They don't have snakes coming out of their heads. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
But so that really got me thinking, in conjunction with my work, just about the whole nature of what that metaphor really means or could symbolize. And that's why that sort of interiority of the snakes living within, whether as memories or things that people have said or, physical things, that felt most logical and true, even though it ends up creating something surreal that cannot exist in reality.
That makes it. That actually, yeah, I can see that. Definitely. I've known a lot of people who have been through some form of sexual trauma, and sometimes it's almost like they disassociate themselves.
Yeah, there's a longing, I think, to, especially depending on the severity, to not want to be with one's body or within one's body because of what happened to one's body,
right?
And how it then affected what happened to the body then affected the mind, right? Especially for women, although women are clearly not the only victims of sexual violence. The sort of interiority of our physiology, I think, brings a different perspective. And there was like this really like far out wackadoo like essay that I'm pretty sure like somebody decently famous wrote like about that, like about like the male genitalia being outside the body and how that created a like psychic dynamic for men or whatever, and then vice versa. I think there might be some truth to that. I also think maybe that person was, smoking something. But I think that there is truth to this idea of wanting to flee the thing that was attacked, right? You can't attack the mind directly the way that you can with the body. But unfortunately, if you attack the body, it leaves trauma within the mind. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty common.
Yeah. And I've seen, I actually used to have a friend who was basically molested, as a child for so long that they didn't see themselves as themselves. They would just kind of pop themselves. It was almost like they were on the outside looking in. And it's unfortunate. It really is. That has to be the defense mechanism, instead of, because like there's more to it than that. There's the dominant male or, female or whoever the aggressor is in that situation, that, perpetuates this, and that person will never live a normal life ever again because of it. And, it's scary, it's scary that this happens in our world.
And with great frequency, more often than not, or more common than not, I would say. Just based on the statistics of people who report, which that's just the people who report. So imagine all the ones who don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, I was going to ask you, and this is, just kind of jumping back into the subject of your book. Do you have a favorite passage or poem that you like? And if so, would you mind reciting it for us? Like the most?
So, yeah, well, so it's kind of interesting because I have a different relationship to the different poems. There are certain lines like my sister asked me because we had a little launch party. It was actually Sunday spaghetti with the snake lady, which I know the Italian one among you can appreciate. Because we did that growing up in our family where, Sundays, we had the spaghetti and meatballs deal, the pot of sauce going all day. And then, by the time the evening rolls around, you're, shoveling in the carbs. But it's interesting because for me, the poems that I think sort of energize me are different than what I think resonates with other people. For whatever reason, folks are connecting a lot with a poem that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have published it if I didn't like the poems in the book. But I don't know that I don't know, maybe for me, like if I'm not, like there's a rigor to it, but a different kind of rigor than is present in some of the other poems that I think, frankly, I mean, I think I was writing in some ways like to sort of, I don't know, impress myself, if that sounds really strange, but the best advice I ever got is basically a re-quoting of a famous quote by a guy, I'm not even sure who it is anymore, and I feel terrible about it because I know it's a fellow poet, like a famous poet though, not like us, little noobs. But it's basically write the book that you want to read, and that's what I did. So like, there's a different kind of rigor to some of the poems in particular that I connect with as the writer of them, but that I don't know that it resonates the same way with others. So how about this? I'll read you one that I know is a favorite of other people's.
That's fair.
Because that makes most sense. I'll read you a reader's favorite. So this is my sister's old favorite in the chapbook is Ravenfather, but now it's Note from the Nadir, which is page 48. Since you both have the book, if you want to.
Yeah, we're gonna change. We're gonna turn it to page 48.
Page 48. All right. And so this is a form poem. It's a pantoum, but I take liberties with it. So this is Note from the Nadir. No savior awaits. These men are predators, and every girl doomed to be consumed by their smoke and mirrors. I'm testing the edges of shards with my hand, guessing the distance between cold silver, steaming red. My life's been a feast of smoke and mirrors. Best to slice through that meat with my own hand, put some distance between real and pretend. Now that I know the hero I sought will never reach me, doesn't exist. Can I cut through illusion with my own two hands as swiftly and easily as my head sopped up what was fed? I'm certain the dream I chased never existed. There is no great epiphany. Yet my head still ingested what was fed. What can you do when part of the problem is you? You'd think there'd be some epiphany, that the equation could be worked out in one's head. But there's nothing you can do when the problem is you. Can you solve the problem of your head? Can you solve that problem with your head? Try to solve any problem in your head when the root of the problem is you. No savior awaits. These men are all the same. That problem lives in and beyond my brain. So thank goodness for sharp shards, steadfast hands.
That I could see why that would be a favorite.
It's really deep.
Yeah, it's very deep. And it says it says so much without saying, without being too much,
Yeah, maybe that's why, like I said, maybe that's why readers connect with it. Whereas I'm like over here on these other poems, like doing things where I'm like, ooh, I think this is cool. And they're like, this should be idea. I don't get it. But, and I get that a lot, by the way, especially from my family. I don't get it, but that's okay. I forgive them for not understanding. But yeah, actually, that poem in particular, it's definitely one of the most depressing of the book, and intentionally so, given that Nader is the low point. But it's also one that speaks to what we were just talking about, that connection between what happens to the physical body and how it affects and infects the mind of a person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm over here waiting for Liz to ask a question. She had a look on her face.
No, I was just going to say, have you had anybody that has like reached out to you that this just really spoke to them because maybe they've been through something very traumatic, that this just spoke to them?
Yeah. And actually, it's been really interesting because, growing up, I only ever heard a story here or there of other people's experiences. I want to say probably the first time that I can readily recall was like somebody in high school. Mm-hmm. So that's a large number of years to go by. Sort of with this sense that you're the only one who's had that kind of experience. And when the chapbook came out, I started hearing more. And then Me Too happened, and I was kind of like, oh, why is my book not ready yet? I'm missing it. I'm missing the window. But, really, and this is like the worst part of it, to earlier points that we've already touched on. This is an evergreen topic. This is a topic that unfortunately just does not seem to go away.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that it will entirely. I would like to think that progress can be made and will be made, although I also don't deny reality, and I want to acknowledge the truth of the world we live in, instead of my hopes for the world that is not present in that space quite yet. But yeah, so along the way, as this book has made the rounds in various forms, again, with the different types of outreach, and then the readers as well. I've heard back from people, people, I feel I'm touched that people feel that they can talk to me about their experiences, although by no means they don't owe that to anybody. They don't, they don't have to talk about this just because I wrote this book and felt comfortable talking about it. But also it's devastating and it's tragic, and that they had to experience, well, not that they had to, that they did experience that because somebody else is a terrible excuse for a human being. Yeah. So, it has opened some doors, and actually, I think built some really, important kind of bridges between myself and other writers who cover this subject that before I started promoting this book, I didn't even know were out there. So there were several authors that I was aware of. Marie Howe is a poet who writes about her experience of survivorship. There's a great anthology called The Why and Later. It was edited by Carly Sachs, and it's got a whole bunch of poems it's an anthology, so it's got poems by all different people, which is great. And I've had that on my shelf for years. Nicole Brown has a book, Sister, and speaks about her experience. And so I knew about a couple of these books out of the gates for a number of years now, but I didn't know about one of my colleagues, Lanny Stabile, and her book, Good Morning to Everyone Except Men Who Named Their Dog Zeus. So her book also covers survivorship, but through the exploration of the myth of Zeus, who's basically like the ultimate rapist, right? I mean, he's just turning into different creatures and banging everybody, without permission. So yeah, I mean, finding these fellow writers, and she's not the only one there. In fact, I'm sort of planning something behind the scenes right now, for an event with a few folks who do write about this subject and have books either out already or forthcoming. Avery M. Guess is another one. The Truth is the name of that collection. That's also a more recent collection. So yeah, I mean, it's just, you're writing about the stuff and you're finally sharing like certain stories, and then the people who are also sharing the stories kind of we find each other basically. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and social media of course helps.
Oh,
so it's
100%.
it's been interesting to kind of, you don't, again, it's like, I would rather have this not have happened to any of us and us never be friends and find each other than what has happened. But that's not reality. And so I will take the positive from the negative that has happened and cherish the community that it has created under the worst circumstances one can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too that you had to meet your new friends, but on that subject. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it also kind of gives you that common ground that and that unity to where you can combat things like this in the future. Things like that. These terrible people. And I think that's great. I think that community means everything. You can't get anything done without community,
And I was just going to say, I'm glad that we're living in a time now where people are more comfortable coming out and saying, like, this happened to me. Because, I mean, like you said, I really didn't know about anybody when I was younger. But now that I'm an adult and I see how widespread it is, and I mean, I've got my own story, and so, I'm glad that we are finally coming into a time where people are speaking out about this. And
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to keep happening, then I would prefer that, people who feel comfortable and safe speaking out do. Because I think that one of the things that for me was just really, it's just funny, like, to think about, because it's just so foolish. Like, this concept that it's only happening to you. And people do this. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not just about survivorship. Like, people think that same thing about, like, their boss yelling at them. Oh, my boss only picks on me. Or, their boyfriend cheats on them. Oh, I'm the only person that's ever been cheated on by their boyfriend, when like nothing could be further from the truth. Right.
Yeah.
But the secrecy around sexual violence it only serves one party, and that's the predator, right? So being able to say, no, like, this is happening, this happened to me, this happened to other people, this is happening to people as we speak, and being able to take that secrecy away from the predators and take that power away, I think is important, and not something that has been nearly as common up until, I want to say, the past maybe 5 or so years.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's, on a different level, that's something that Liz and I try to do on this podcast. It's not necessarily, specifically that, but it's normalizing the not so normal, and I mean, we might be a little late to the game, but, like something somebody might be afraid to talk about, something somebody wants to, share with the world that they're not able to speak with to their best friend, or they're not able to speak with, so that's one thing. I'm sure when you saw my message on Facebook, the people that I was asking for, I mean, it was a wide variety of people,
Mm-hmm.
and I've achieved all of those people and more, which is pretty amazing. And it's kind of shown me that like more people have more to offer than just a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think normalizing that and normalizing what these people went through and combating it, I think it takes a community, like I said earlier. And in order to do that, you have to normalize it. You have to normalize speaking out. You have to normalize, and I don't think we'll ever get rid of terrible people. That'll never go away, unfortunately.
Well,
But
I mean, I got a gun, so.
oh man, well, now we're gonna get investigated. Thanks.
That's the thing. In order to get rid of the terrible people, it takes terrible acts, and so then you, in some respects, have to become the terrible person in order to get rid of the terrible people. But then, if you're one of the terrible people, then what?
Now I'm confused.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I'm all about righteous rage, and that sort of thing. But at a certain point, I do wonder what that line is. Like I can understand. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating at all for this by saying this, but and I will also frame it in the movies when you see somebody, seek vengeance by, taking some violent action against somebody who is violent towards them or their family or their loved one or whatever, you understand why that's happening. And in some respects, maybe you even feel that it's justified, but that becomes problematic. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's complicated and problematic. So,
well, it's kind of like that show Dexter,
Oh yeah, we love Dexter. Yeah,
I mean, he's taking care of people who, the justice system, low. So, I mean, and a hero. So I get it.
You hear that, Batman? We're coming for you.
That's right. He's going to go to space with Elon and Jeff. But no, it's funny that you mentioned this whole normalizing thing, because I think there's either like one of two things going on, and that's either nobody's normal or everything's normal. Mm-hmm. And we, again, are kind of trained to believe that things aren't normal or things aren't prevalent when they actually, in fact, are. Mm-hmm. So the experience of sexual violence actually is, unfortunately, an average and common experience. Mm-hmm. Although I won't say that a perpetrator is normal, because that behavior is abnormal. Yeah. But, it's common. Yeah. And so if something is common, I don't know that makes it normal. But when we think of the word normal, but I'm dissecting now semantics. This is what poets do. So sorry that
you can make it really simple and just say normal doesn't exist. Normal doesn't exist.
I don't think it does. It doesn't anymore.
Normal doesn't exist. It's who you are as a person is your normal. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's the unfortunate truth.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's because when I was a teenager, you know, I was the goth kid. You know, I know
Recovering.
you wouldn't be able to tell, right?
You wouldn't be able to tell with me either. Although my true goth friend calls me goth light because I didn't go full goth, but in spirit I am
Yeah.
always.
So we were kind of like part of a clique that we kind of called ourselves the Freaks, and this was back when, like, in the late '90s, you know, when Marilyn Manson was just getting big, and you know, all these new metal bands and these electronica bands were coming out, like Orgy, and you know, and that's the kind of music we listened to when we had Jinkos and the black shirts, and we wore face paint, you know.
Yeah.
And we were called freaks.
Mm-hmm.
But we would always walk around and say, well, we're different than everybody else. And I come to realize as an adult that if you try so hard to be different, you become just like conformity. You know, if you think about it, because, like, you know, if you're trying so hard not to be a conformist, you end up being a conformist anyway. There is no such thing as normal.
Yeah.
Mine, blown.
Boom. Mic drop.
That's right.
You know, it's interesting because I think, you know, even the most I guess, like, sort of watered down personality, I don't know that I believe that I mean, I think we're all, like, unique, just period. No matter if we try to kind of blend into a group, like, in fact, I think sometimes that sort of, like, trying to fit in or establish a sort of persona, as it were, is actually about, in some respects, trying to maybe cover up the uniqueness. So maybe the reason that you want to find community and want to band together is because you don't want to actually feel as unique as you are, but because you want to feel like you are a part of something that feels more acceptable, even in its unacceptability, right? Like, even if people look at you, ooh, you freaks or whatever, right? But you were together. If you were alone as a freak, right? That's far less acceptable to the human psyche.
Oh, I got that on the train tracks. Going home when I was walking by myself one day. That was a fun day. Those are around Columbine. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I got my ass handed to me just because of the way I looked. It was what it is. You know, I can't just say I chalk it up for the time, but it kind of was. People were scared, you know?
Well, people are scared. They're just scared of things now that they, by and large, I think, don't understand. The fear of the unknown, or we don't identify as, or the parts that we actually do deeply identify but reject about ourselves. All of that becomes really problematic and can sometimes end in sort of violent outward actions, like what it sounds like you experienced.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it was my personal choices that led it to that point. However, you can't control other people. You can only try.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, so your personal choice to wear Jenko means, like, you should have gotten jumped? Like,
exactly.
Fashion police.
Yeah. The fashion police were actually a lot more aggressive back then. You know, those were some hard times living.
I do remember how so in the Midwest, we call them stoners, but in Arizona, we call them skaters, but they, were the same sort
They're
of
the same
people.
people, yeah.
Right. And they would always get harassed at the mall by the, mall security. It's like, dude, they're just wearing baggy jeans and like, spiky like bracelets. Like, it's just not a thing. It's not what you think it is, man. Like,
I had blue hair. I had blue hair in high school. And I mean, it was what, 96, and not a lot of people had. And I would go to the grocery store and like old ladies would like hold their purse. So I couldn't steal it. And now you look at them and like old people have crazy hair. I'm like, well, son of a bitch.
We were at the grocery store.
Not to be ageist, but some old ladies do have blue hair themselves.
I know. Yeah. I'm like,
it's just more.
We were at the grocery store the other day, and an old woman had this hot pink hair.
Excellent.
And I mean, she was probably about 75?
Yeah, she was rocking it too. I was like,
yeah.
We pulled in and
Good
I was like,
her.
You go, girl.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how, like that, like you were saying, stuff like when we were in high school, wearing like the thick black eyeliner, that made you. Now everybody does it. So we made it.
Oh,
cool.
yeah, man. Yeah,
we're hipsters.
We totally did.
We
totally.
Made it cool.
Exactly.
That's right. Damn it. We paved the way for all these emo kids. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. Yeah, it's funny how like goth thing kind of became like emo.
But oh my goodness.
It was like a continuum / samesies, but just with a different name. I don't know.
They're a bit more whinier than the goth kids were.
Are they?
Well, at least for my school, they were.
Okay.
Yeah, we were all tough because we got our asses kicked individually.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like there's probably some emo kids getting their asses kicked too.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It's the same as it ever was. They just put a new label on it. I agree with you on that. It's kind of like how history or fashion always repeats itself. Have you noticed that bell bottoms came back and then left and now they're coming back again?
Yeah.
I always wear bell bottoms. I don't get it.
Jeans, right? I mean, that's like a Sid Vicious thing. So
that is definitely a Sid Vicious thing. But I want to know what's up with the sagging of them. Like, I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's almost like the people who make the skinny jeans haven't figured out how to work the top properly and get the same tightness down below. And so the people who want to wear them like have to buy like sizes that are too small for their hip and waist just to have the tightness on the thighs and the calves. But yeah, I'm not a fan.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just too much. Like, it was too much with the baggy jeans, but like it looked proportionate at least.
Yeah.
This doesn't look proportionate to me. Like, I don't know. The semantics are off. It's strange.
I'm the old lady driving down the street like, pull your pants up, kid. That's me.
Yeah.
Ask Dave. I'm an old lady at heart. Like, it's terrible.
We call ourselves senior citizens in younger bodies. We don't want to hear the racket next door. We don't want all that stuff. Yeah. That's how you know you're getting old. When you see skinny jeans and you're like, no.
When we moved into our house, like, what was it, like day 3? I was eating my breakfast at the window, just like yelling at kids, like, to get off our lawn. Like, this house isn't vacant anymore. Go.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like,
oh, I was just saying, it's funny how things change. Like, I remember people telling me, like older people, and by older people, I mean like adults, like not actually really that much older. And certainly they were my age or younger when they told me this. But like, it was, I could never understand what the big deal was about getting seats at concerts. Like, I was like, why wouldn't you want to stand and be like as close as you possibly can to the stage and all that stuff? And then something happened, a flip like switched in my 30s. And I was like, I understand all. I shall never stand at a concert again.
I am going to ruin my hearing if I get too close.
Exactly.
We went to a concert in January, and it was standing only. And we got home, and I'm like, I can't do it. Cancel our plans tomorrow because I'm done. And then like the main act didn't take the stage until 11?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to drive home after. I'm going to go to bed. It's a 45-minute drive home. And some guy spilled his beer on me. I'm like, I'm going to get pulled over. They're going to smell beer. Yeah, I was that old lady at the concert. I think we ended up, like, we tried to get as close as possible. And I'm like, I'm tired. Can we stand in the back so I can lean against the wall?
Yeah.
I'm like, this.
I think the last standing concert we had tickets for, I actually won. So this was when we were still living in Las Vegas, and we got tickets to The Cure, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And we could, we had to cut out early. Like, it was too much. Like, I mean, we had decent shoes. I'm not one of these people who like, oh yeah, I can do the standing concert in stilettos. Like, no, I've never been that person. Like, I wear appropriate attire, particularly on my feet. But even after a couple hours, like, we were just like, I'm like, yeah, we're going to miss some of the big hits, like, as part of the encore, but like, we can't do this anymore. Like, I have a bad back. I've had a bad back since I was a teenager. He's got a bad back. So it's like, yeah, we just, thank you, Cure, but like, gotta go. I'm too old now for this.
So I'm just going to put this out there. Either. I'm going to put this out there. Liz loves The Cure.
Yeah.
It was pretty great.
I used to do my hair like Robert Smith, and like, yeah, I was that kid in high school. Yeah. I could still do it now with short hair. I wake up and it's kind of doing that on its own. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to spray and go.
I mean, what's not to like? It's good stuff.
He hates The Cure. He hates them.
What?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Basically, any music I like, he hates. So
okay,
that is not true.
Let's dissect this, shall we?
Okay.
I like the Kinks.
Everybody likes the Kinks.
One band. What's the CD or the MP3 or what have you that has to be just played when you're by yourself? Like,
who, me?
Thou shalt not play either of you. Like, thou shalt not play this album or this song or this band while I am in the room with you.
For me, he refuses to listen to Gogo Bordello.
Okay.
And so we have this playlist on Spotify. It's Dave and Liz's Power Mix, and it is everything from Johnny Cash to Snoop Dogg. I mean, Marilyn Manson, Diane Ward. It's just weird. I've got 2 Gogo Bordello songs on that, and every time we're in the car, if those songs come on, he skips them.
Skip, yeah.
I'm like, oh, but I just listened to Ass and Titties, but like, oh, God forbid we listen to Gogo Bordello.
All right, so I wouldn't have such a problem with him if the music didn't sound like it came like right from out of a circus.
It's good. It's good.
No, I find too that like dudes always, I don't know if it's just a thing with music, because I think there are certain things maybe that, like women may be wittier about, quicker on the draw. But for whatever reason, I think dudes tend to have some pretty good dunks when it comes to like music they hate. Like they have it down. This sounds music, and I'm not doing it.
I will listen to whatever he puts on, but like, God forbid I put on Gogo Bordello or Tom Waits or Leonard Cohen or.
No! Okay. These are like cardinal sins.
All right. Full disclosure. I don't. Hold on. With Tom Waits and Leonard Cohen, they're fantastic musicians. I don't like listening to music that makes me feel more depressed.
Okay, so maybe you shouldn't read my book.
Reading it's fine. It's listening to the it's a mood changer, you know?
Okay, so there's a playlist in the back of the book. Maybe don't listen to that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was actually checking that out, and I was going to kind of make the playlist because I've heard of some of these. So
it's on YouTube. It's already set up on YouTube. All you have to do is go to Head of its own channel, and I'm the opposite of Dave. If I'm already sad, I'm going to listen to sad music, and I'm just going to make it worse. I'm going to keep digging that hole, put on some Mazzy Star, some really depressing shit, put me in a dark room, let me cry for 2 days. We're fine. Exactly. I am of that nature as well. So, yeah.
And I think a lot of that honestly has to do with how you process feelings. Like with music has such an inspiration. In fact, we're going to be on a podcast coming up where you have to put out a playlist of your songs. And for each song has to have an experience attached to it that happened in your life.
Okay.
Which I think is very unique, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, fun.
We actually, if you want to check out the episode with Annette,
okay.
On our first season there, she's the host of that podcast, and we kind of explain a bit more in detail. But I feel like every song that you are inspired by or that you listen to, like say if you had a song in the 90s that you just can't stop listening to, there's a story attached to that, and it really makes you think about that, you know. And music gives you that feeling, that experience, you know. Like I said, I could read depressing shit all day long. My favorite genre of movie is horror, you know, but I just can't listen to stuff that makes me more sad because of the feelings attached to it.
Yeah. And this is the two different personalities here. So for that podcast, we're each going to be on separately. So we each had to do a playlist of 10 to 15 songs. He's turned his in. He's already scheduled. I'm still working on my playlist. I only have 7 songs on my playlist.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had 16 songs.
See, I feel like I have too many songs. Like, I don't even know how would you even narrow it down? Like,
I'm revisiting stuff from high school that I'm like, you know, maybe I haven't listened to in a long time that like really kind of affected, you know, me. And yeah, I'm reaching way back, and he's already like, yeah, I'm scheduled. And I'm like, I haven't even finished my playlist. Like, I'm not even halfway through.
But that goes back to the difference between men and women too, because you attach your feelings to music. I attach experiences to music.
I don't know that it's that clear cut, you know, but.
Well, it's not, but like between me and her, that's what's going on.
Sure.
She's, you know.
I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah. So, and it's funny that, you know, me saying that I don't like to listen to sad music because I write sad music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am my biggest fan. I'm just saying.
It's different when it's your own stink, as it were.
Yeah.
It's different, for sure.
Like I have a song, it's called Time to Pass that Liz and I wrote together. And it's a, what's the word I'm looking for? A tragedy, I guess. Where basically it's just two guys talking around a campfire. You find out that they robbed, they had a history of robbing banks together. And this guy, he wants to change his life. And so he kills his partners, takes the money to start a new life without robbing banks, and all this. But the guilt of killing his partners weighed on him so much that he ended up hanging himself by the end of the song.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
totally like kids music right there. Like,
yeah, 100%
for it.
100%.
He's a nephew.
And I also have another song that was a personal song. It's called Karen. It's about my daughter who passed away. So it's like one of those, really emotional songs that normally I wouldn't listen to. But because I wrote it, I listened to the hell out of it,
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry to hear that. I actually, I whatever episode I just most recently listened to that actually came up. It was the one where you were doing the game where like you have to guess the name of the song based on like these weird clues. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm Sex and Candy. I'm sitting there yelling at the phone as I'm listening. I'm like, Sex and Candy by Marcy Playground. What is happening right now? Why am I not understanding this?
Thank you.
Like, especially the happiness is a warm gun. I was like, that is like a stretch. That is a stretch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that part coming up.
Yeah. That was Testicles Penis with the Wilsons. Yeah. Those two are other podcasters. They run a podcast called Super Familiar with the Wilsons, which is why it came up like that. Very, very awesome people. But yeah, they're like, I think his wife Amanda wanted to go deeper, and like I was trying to keep it like light and everything, and like I want to have them back on to have a deep episode with them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when that came up, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I was like, I know this is the place that we can get deep. But I was trying to keep this like happy and, so, Josh and Amanda, if you're listening to this, I really loved having you on our show. We want to have you back for a more deep discussion.
There you go.
Yeah. But we do. I mean, we have an episode called The Loss of Loved Ones where kind of mostly Dave, because he's had a lot of loss in his life, kind of just deep dive into, people he's lost. I mean, starting at a very young age, all the way up through, his dad passed away, very recently. So we do have those dark episodes that kind of it's cathartic, I think.
Well, and we can't be us without explaining who we are and where we come from.
Yeah.
If you're going to get Dave and Liz, you're getting all 300 pounds of me, baby. Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, I think there's something to be said for authenticity, which seems to be getting rarer and rarer these days, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, it's, at least I can say with this book, because I have had people who have either just completely ignored my emails or outreach, or like, they'll be like, oh, this sounds interesting or cool. Like, send me, a copy of the digital arc or whatever. And then like, they totally ghost me. Mm-hmm. So at least I can say, like, this is what it is. Like, this is what this is about. Like, if you can't handle it, but like this is like a big aspect of, I guess, an important subject in my life. And so it's not all of me, but it is part of me. So like, you know, if you're not okay kind of discussing that or having that be a subject of fill in the blank, then yeah, I mean then that is not like a person. I'm not a person to be in your life and vice versa. Because people don't just have I don't know anybody that just has this like perfectly uncomplicated life with, you know, just sheer happiness, like dripping out of their butts. Like I know literally no one like that.
Yeah.
Except me.
Except Dave. But maybe it's because he won't listen to Leonard Cohen or Tom Waits.
That's right.
Maybe
That's
that.
right. I'm a happy ass motherfucker.
His problem with Leonard Cohen is specifically Famous Blue Raincoat. So
Specifically, I actually like Hallelujah. That's it's a depressing song, yes, but I like that song.
I mean, what about Dance Me to the End of Love? That's not a depressing song. That's a great song.
yeah. He also doesn't like his voice. His deep, just kind of that monotone. So
That's just a man thing, you know.
he's jealous.
I feel like my masculinity's been challenged. You know,
I need the voice to be a couple octaves higher to feel comfortable with my own genitalia. So
yeah.
just crank it up, Leonard. I'm not feeling it.
Oh man, well thank God she didn't listen to the episode with Big Tiny.
Who's Big Tiny?
Exactly. When you listen to the Annette episode, you'll hear about it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, on a personal note, I would love to have you back on our show. Even not as the author, but maybe as the person. I think just having a chat with you would just be amazing. That when it's like just more about you and
Weird shit.
Yeah. Yeah, if you got more weird shit to put out there, I'd love to have you again.
Yeah, like you don't find writing about Medusa weird? You don't find my like odd attempts at like making poetry both accessible and yet extremely complicated weird?
I'll be honest with you, I think it's actually beautiful and artistic.
Well, thank you. But you also haven't read it, so I can't really take you.
No, but the concept of it sounds beautiful and artistic to me. And that fancy ass cover art.
Yeah.
No, but I will read it. This copy is going to go to one of our lucky winners. So be sure to pay attention to our social medias. It could be a live show. It could be a game that we play. It could be bingo. It could be weird, which is a game that I just came up with.
I don't even know what it is. I'm interested.
I don't even know what that is. So,
well, so I kind of explained it a little bit in an episode that we recorded already. So what weird is we give out trivia questions. And we ask people to DM the answers. If it is the right answer, they get a letter. And this will go on until somebody spells out weird.
So like horse.
Yeah, like horse, but with trivia questions.
You just explained it to me in the other episode when you came up with this, and I didn't understand it until now.
Okay, but so a person gets the answer correct, and they get one letter. And then they have to answer like 5 more, or like other people answer 5 more, and then they get one letter, and then
but the first person to get it right wins the book.
Yeah, no,
it's not as challenging because of Google.
That's true. Damn it, Google! Fuck you. See, this was the idea.
Because you could technically make it more challenging, like something you couldn't necessarily Google.
Like something maybe that we said in our podcast.
Oh,
It
we
could be
should deep
something
dive into like
or like
all
even
of
like
it.
okay, like let's talk about like what were the like the punk kids or the goth kids called in the Midwest versus when you moved to Tucson. I mean, because it's
Right.
not the same word, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing. I don't know. Like it could
No,
be
that's
something from, you know, pop culture. Actually, I don't know if you have, probably not, because I don't know how much you're in the literary scene, but Only Magazine, it's OLNEY, they're out of Ohio. They just did this thing where like you could pitch them ideas to like team up with them on like any kind of project. It didn't even have to necessarily be like literary per se, but I think the idea was that eventually it would connect to something literary in some way, shape, or form. But like they actually built this like it was like a cipher key, like it was like two parts, and then you when you got to the website, you clicked on the portal, which was this couch with a coffee ring encircling it. It was like the most bizarre like like I don't even know, but like, and I frankly it was like woo way over my head. But there, I was following a person who was like way smarter than me who figured it out, and then they realized that like nobody was as smart as that person, and so they just opened it up like the next day because they were like, yeah, I mean, like one person solved it, but like nobody understands what's happening right now. So I guess what I'm saying is don't do that. But maybe you could do something along the lines of where it's not easily Googleable, but, you know, still accessible to people with IQs less than 175.
yeah. Or we could just have people share shit.
That too.
Tag and share. Tag and share.
I say we deep dive into all of our episodes and pick out like obscure shit we've said. Make them listen to our
Ooh.
episodes.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
Listen to all the episodes. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Paying me like, you know, $16.99 plus shipping is probably going to be the easier of the two options on that. It's not gonna lie. Because you have
Edit
like,
that part out.
you have 20 plus episodes, though. I'm just saying that's at least 2 hours. Like, can you imagine somebody just going back and forth? Like, I love my book, but I don't think anybody's gonna love my book that much. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, we can give one clue. We can give like the name of the episode.
you could, or you could cite it to the name of the episode and make it like they have to figure out the puzzle to figure out the episode, and then figure it out. Then the second clue is something in the episode. I don't know. I mean, I'm just letting you know what. Like,
we can make this fun, or
people who are way smarter than me have done.
Yeah, we can make this super fun, or we could just make it. Hey, you tag, you share. You tag the author, and we'll put your name on a wheel, and we'll spin the wheel, and whoever it lands on wins.
Don't do that.
I like that wheel. That was fun when we did that last time.
Cool. I'm not gonna lie, but don't do that. Like, make them actually do something. Listen to at least one episode. And,
there you go.
I support that.
Listen to an episode and write an essay.
Oh my God. No, you don't want to tell writers to do that. You really don't. Because they will. And then they'll DM it to you and make you read it. And then when you don't, then they'll like throw you under the bus online.
Oh, yeah. That's fine. I've been thrown under the bus online.
And then I wrote about it. And then Dave just ignored my DMs. And he's the worst person like ever to walk the earth. And then like 20 other people will be like, yeah, Dave sucks. And then they'll look at your show.
Hey, you know what? Bad publicity is still publicity.
You say that, but you have not met literary Twitter.
Oh.
I'm just warning you now. You say that, but you have not.
Oh, man. They like me on Twitter.
They've been, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, they have just been dragging this particular press for like the last 2 days. So, yeah.
Woof.
I mean, I'm not saying people didn't do anything like unsavory. I'm just saying.
Everything I do is unsavory, but I keep to my word. If somebody sends me something to read, I definitely will. I might not comprehend it, but I'll damn sure try.
There you go.
I draw pictures for him, so he gets it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. What are you talking about? I'm going to college.
Didn't we just discuss last night me writing your essays for you?
You did say that, and you also said that I need to pay you for it, and I'm not sure I'm cool with that.
I mean, $20. Come on.
What is happening here? Oh my God.
I told
man.
him that after I graduated high school, I was in my early 20s, and my brother was still in high school, and he and his friends would pay me to write their book reports for them. And one time I had to do 3 different book reports on the same book and make them all different, so they all were different. They all sounded different. So that's how that came about.
That sounds like my worst nightmare as a writer. Like having basically the same thing assigned to me by 3 different people and taking on the 3 jobs at the same time and being like, what do I even do with this? Okay, somebody's getting a poem. That's the answer.
I'm just gonna make copies of the same paper.
Can't do it. You're getting a poem. Later.
But yes, Raegen, I would love to have you on again.
Sure.
You have been an absolute delight. I want at least, everybody to go out, check out her book, Head of a Gorgon. It's this guy right here. Can we all see? Everybody happy? Okay. It's on Amazon, anywhere you can buy books, I'm sure, correct?
Yeah, but honestly, the better way to go about it is to either buy it through my press and support the small press, indie press that believed in my work and published it. Or if they want a signed copy, they can actually contact me through my website, which is Raegen MP. So that's my first name, my middle initial, my last initial, .wordpress.com.
And all of that will be on her guest profile on our website. So be sure to visit that. Raegen, what is coming up for you? We want to know what's happening in your future. This is your stage. Go ahead and give it to us.
Okay. So I'm actually going to be, the next thing that I'm doing is tomorrow. It's going to be a reading with Matthew E. Henry, who is a poet who also writes about social justice issues, in his case, racism, and Jackie Lou, who is our mutual cover artist. In fact, he's the one who introduced me to her. So she's going to be on with us at this event talking about the book covers and how the process went creating the art, because she actually read his book and then created the art, whereas I had a very concrete idea. She built the art and read the book after. So it's like completely different, sort of like process in reverse. So that's next. I have a profile on me coming out in a paper in Las Vegas, actually, because I have some friends there who were kind enough to actually care about my work. So even though I don't live there anymore, they took it on. So that'll be coming out next month. And then in the next month or two, I will have a sort of like conversation with one of my fellow creative writers from Las Vegas as well, about the book and an essay that I wrote about the book. So that's coming up. And then I have my top secret event planned for, in the early planning stages for April, which is National Poetry Month and also National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we've got something in the works, and I look forward to watching that kind of come together and come to fruition. By watching, I mean doing like a bunch of heavy lifting, but also working with some great people to make things happen. So that is going to be actually a fundraiser, but that's down the line quite a ways. So.
Well, that's perfect. I am looking forward to hearing more from you. And we want to have you back, like I said, on a more personal capacity. But, if you want to drop some more of the work that you're doing by that point, by all means. This, you can use our platform anytime you like.
Thanks.
And from us, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Now, you fucking deviants can't get enough of us. We love you. Thank you so much. For now, this is Dave.
And I'm Liz.
And we will see you next week.
See ya.